What's up, everybody? I'm Derek. This is Rocking E Forge, and this is my new garage/shop space. Now, I just recently moved across the country from Connecticut to Washington State, where I purchased a house and a two-car detached garage that would double as my workshop here in Western Washington. Now, my workshop is not at all set up right now. There really is just a bunch of tools and materials and just various things for the workshop in boxes and tubs, just kind of strewn around the workshop. My garage also doubles as my laundry room, and it's also where I keep my motorcycles. There have been a couple of you asking for shop tours or showing of the spaces that I've been working in the past. Unfortunately, I didn't own my own shop space until now. So, as a result, now that I own my own garage, I can incorporate my existing tools and new ideas into my own personalized shop space. Now, the vision of this particular shop space is going to consist of a forging space here near the big open roll-up door of the garage, and moving back toward the back of the garage, having some sort of workbench or welding table or something of that nature, so that I am able to fabricate or do woodworking or whatever I need here toward the middle of the shop. Now, moving toward the back of the garage, the plan is going to be setting up my drilling and grinding station for working on knives and other things that I need to drill and use a belt grinder on. I need to purchase a belt grinder, and I am in the process of shopping for new belt grinders because the ones that I was using in my previous videos were not mine. That was not my shop space, and as such, I need to purchase my own now that I've moved into my own shop. So, going to be kind of a drilling grinding station there toward that back corner, and then sweeping around to the back wall, having some sort of assembly table or leather working table or something, some space where I can glue up knives, put together knife sheaths, or do any other simple assembly work for pieces that I'm doing there in the back, near that back window. Now, as for the walls, my intention is going to be to put up some sort of pegboard system for hanging various tools and things that I use frequently on the walls, having either the workbench or the welding table, whichever I end up getting, and the tools and possibly my logo, some sort of sign built, etc., in order to be the kind of backdrop for the intros and outros of my videos, and installing some sort of shelf or rack to store my longer pieces of steel and various other things that I don't need access to all the time necessarily. Pretty small, probably just a foot or so out from the wall, up high and out of the way where I can store wood and steel and things like that. Now, the first step in moving toward that vision is just simply rearranging what I've got into its kind of various zones, so to speak, as I described previous. Now, as I mentioned previously, I pretty much just have all of my tools and my steel and everything just kind of in tubs strewn about my garage at this point. So it's really going to be kind of a lot of staging until I get the workbench or welding table or whatever the makeup of that ends up being installed, as well as any storage racks and shelving units and things like that toward the back. But until I get those things in, everything's still gonna kind of remain stored the way it is. But getting everything kind of laid out and pre-staged here on the side wall of my garage is going to help me visualize where I wanna put everything, as well as the size and shape of the various zones that I wanna build here. The plan for me is to pretty much just rearrange and pre-stage the various zones that I talked about. So the idea is I'm gonna have all of my working space here along the wall. The workbench will be able to pull out from the wall into the center of the floor for working on larger pieces, or if that's a welding table, moving it is going to be a bit more challenging. But I do intend to have whatever I end up here on this kind of sidewall on casters so that they're easy enough to roll around the garage by myself. But I've talked enough, so I'm gonna get to rearranging this space and kind of laying everything out and zoning, so to speak, for my plans for what I'm going to add into the space. So let's stop talking and let's get rocking. So the goal here is going to be, I'm going to continue using this coal forge as a tray for my propane forge, and this kind of zone is going to be my blacksmithing, hammering, actual smithing zone of my garage. Now I still am going to park my truck in the garage here, which is why I have everything kind of shoved up against one wall, so to speak, but when I do break this stuff out to use it and film videos and make projects, etc., I'll be pulling the tray out a little bit away from the wall so that the heat's not a concern toward the wall, and then pulling the anvil out toward the center of the garage so that all of the forge scale and sparks and things flying off the pieces that I'm hammering on doesn't shower the wall and ruin whatever I've got over here, or heaven forbid catch anything on fire. So that will be the goal moving forward. I'm about to open this up. This is my 2-burner Mr. Volcano Hero 2 propane forge, and I am equally curious and terrified for how well or how not well it survived the last 2 moves that I've done. So I guess we're just gonna go for it. So, as you can see, a lot of that is all cracked and sitting here in the tray as shards, and the ceiling of the forge itself is pretty much non-existent. It looks pretty well like that wall on this side here. So, I'm going to just kind of generally commit to saying that this forge is currently unusable, and at the very least, I'm probably going to have to chip out a lot of this extra stuff, cement everything, and hope that it holds up a little better the second time. At the worst, I might just remove the entire lining in total and just redo the entire thing. The forge body's totally fine. It's just made of sheet metal, basically. However, doing anything in this forge that requires the flame is not particularly conducive to my own physical well-being, to avoid breathing these fibers in the kale wool blanket. So unfortunately, that is going to mean that I'm not going to be able to use this forge in the near future. I may do a rebuilding renovation video to kind of show you the process on renovating this forge, or basically building from scratch this forge. I know that this forge is no longer available on Amazon, which is very unfortunate because it's one of the best bang for your buck budget forges that I have been able to find. But I think I will be doing a video focusing specifically on cleaning out and renovating this forge so that I can use it maybe in the next couple of weeks, because I am stoked to be getting back to shooting project videos and more blacksmithing content as opposed to the historical and travel things that I've been doing. Doing all of those videos has been a blast, but the viewership hasn't been super great, unfortunately, and it is kind of diluting the content that was meant to be the focus of this channel. So I'm really excited to be getting back into project videos, and I hope you are as well. I'm gonna keep cleaning up because cleaning this up is not the goal today. So I'm gonna move back into the rest of the shop and continue kind of laying things out in where my head thinks it's going to end up. So let's keep on rocking. I had to go get some drywall anchors because either the tool rack thing or my studs are not standardized, so. So the goal here, I'm just gonna start unpacking some of these things as I talk, is to have as many of my normal tools hanging on the wall above whatever workbench space that I build right here, whether that be a actual workbench or a welding table. I plan to add more of these panels, kind of go in that direction and maybe down to kind of frame different locations. And then I plan to do something related to my logo, the Rocking E logo that you see on all my hats, on the center of one of them, or somehow tying the space together as my location where I can film my intros and outros. Anyway, yeah, just hang some stuff up here, start putting tools up, and we'll keep on organizing the shop here. So I'm in the process of populating this and kind of rearranging, and I'm sure I will rearrange 2 or 3 times. I was originally going to put my tongs up in here, but a lot of them don't fit, and I was a little concerned that this one little rack wasn't going to hold 10 pounds of tongs, so they're going to stay on the little lower rack of my anvil stand. However, I was pleasantly surprised to realize that all of my punches fit very nicely in these little ring things. So we are going to do that. All right, so I've been in Washington for just a few weeks at this point, and I'm already happy to announce that I have my first main addition to the shop. And that is this Trans World Steel Incorporated, Taiwan-made freestanding drill press. Now, it may look a little crusty and rusty, and I'm going to be doing a lot of work with this nylon cup wheel in order to be cleaning it up. But I did test it at the yard sale I bought it at, and everything free spins. All of the belt drive and the wheels up here in the top are in really good condition. It does work. Everything operates pretty darn smoothly. However, in the process of getting it literally like less than a mile down the road to my shop, I managed to bust off what looks to be the positive wire on the power supply to the motor. So while I could plug this in, it wouldn't do anything. So I need to strip that wire and replace the connector so that I can get this thing running. I just went and picked up some of these ring terminals from Ace Hardware, and theoretically, this should be sufficient to get power back. I will admit that I'm a little concerned at given the normal wiring color convention on this this setup, in that what seems to be hot, the positive, negative, and ground all seem to go through the same wiring connector, but it worked before I ripped the thing off, so I am gonna call that probably fine. We are going to tighten that a little more than it was originally. All right. Now, it's going to hang out like that for the time being, or forever, who knows. Now I've got to show you one of the coolest features, I think, of this neat old drill press is there is a sticker inside the front or the top cover that gear ratios to achieve specific RPM, all the way up to 3,820 RPM, simply by rearranging where these belts are actually positioned on those wheels, which I think is pretty darn sweet. Now, this drill press is going to become a permanent fixture in my shop, obviously, and I am super thankful to honestly brag a little bit and say that I got this at a yard sale for $150, which could not have come at a better time, because this is the Craftsman drill press that I've used in a number of my videos, and unfortunately, in the move, this got dropped or otherwise flattened down on top of the housing holding the wheels in place, and as such, I cannot use the lowest belt gear on this. Also, this only has two, like from the motor to the chuck, only has a certain number of combinations, which admittedly go up to 3,100 RPM, but the freestanding drill press gives me a lot more flexibility and options, which I am super excited about, because it's gonna give me the opportunity to just rearrange to pretty well fine-tune the RPM I need for drilling certain steel or wood or what have you. So that's gonna give me a lot of flexibility and just looks awesome. I'm gonna pretty well wire wheel all of the rust off of it, and then I might do a clear coat on the actual blue pieces to kind of preserve that patina like you see on old cars sometimes, where they kind of let the rust shine through the paint and preserve that patina of an aged car. I'm gonna do the same thing with this aged tool. So I'm pretty happy with it. Now, this area is already starting to look a little more like a smithy, but this back corner is starting to look a little jumbled. And I don't currently have a particularly big solution to this problem yet. This is going to be pretty much an ever-evolving project that I continually tweak and rearrange things until I really get it just right in the way I want it. And I'm certainly not going to cover all of that in this video or this series necessarily. You may see things rearranged from time to time in the future, but I am open to suggestions if anyone has any recommendations for workbenches or large shelving units or drawer units or cupboards, etc., as far as tool storage and unique ways to maybe display certain things that either I've made or tools that I enjoy, etc. Now, I'm happy to say, when I moved into the house that I purchased, this pretty sweet stump just was here already, and I am contemplating using this stump as a stand for my anvil. I think if I can get this somehow affixed to the stump level and in a more permanent way, it won't have as much rock and wobble as the pretty light stand that I've had it on. Now, one downside is this stump is a little short in terms of, this is almost as low as the stand itself that I had my anvil on, and you're supposed to be able to pretty well knuckle or hold your hammer level as you're standing next to your anvil. So if I do end up repurposing this for an anvil stand, I'm going to have to probably add some sort of legs to it in order to raise it up high enough to be comfortable for me to use. But that will be the focus of another video if I so choose to do this. I haven't really decided if I actually want to use this stump or not for this purpose, or if I want to keep using this stand and just make this a little more stable and kind of add mass and weight to it to make it bounce around a little less. One way or another, whatever I end up using the stump for, assuming it's shop related, will be in a future video. So I decided to put my current existing workbench in the space where I kind of want my new workbench or welding table or whatever to inhabit, as kind of a stopgap, so to speak, or just something to use while I plan out the rest of the shop itself. I also need somewhere to affix my post vise to, and I'm planning to put it here on kind of this corner here, facing either at an angle or out into the shop. Now, this is a really interesting mechanism, and I don't know if you can really see it, but it's got this kind of little C-shaped shim, and basically just an additional shim that shims behind it in order to adjust where you want it on the stationary arm of the vise. And because of how high I want to put this bracket on here, this shim I actually had to pull out, and it doesn't actually fit very well in there anymore. So one of the first projects I'm going to do when I get the forge all recast and fired up is to forge a shim that fits in here so that I can raise this bracket up and appropriately attach it to my workbench. Now, another issue, and one of the reasons I want to replace this bench, is because it racks like crazy. And that's not exactly conducive to filing and hammering on pieces that I have locked in that post vise. Basically, in order to minimize racking, I might do a half beam or something across the front, because I still want to be able to slide things underneath the workbench and kind of sit in it when I'm working on things up close on top of the bench. So that's going to be a bit of a challenge, but I don't know precisely what I want to have here in the future. But I thought it would be useful to have something here to be a nice workspace until I replace it. So I probably won't get rid of this workbench. I'll probably use it in the back as some sort of other workstation once I do put the final product here in the middle of the wall, so to speak. Because I built this workbench just out of plywood and 2x4s, I think it was about 6 years ago, honestly, when I was still living in South Carolina at the time. And it has gotten me through a number of projects, even with the issues racking that it does. This will give me a nice space to put my tabletop bandsaw on and things like that for holding things down or otherwise working on projects in the meantime until I can replace it with something a little fancier. All right, so it's been a couple of days since, like 2 seconds ago, when I showed you where I was putting my workbench for the time being. And now I've got the refractory and the rigidizer for the repairs that I need to make on my forge. Now, it'll probably be a couple of weeks before I get that video, filmed and produced and edited, etc. So since I'm in the middle of my travel vlog series still, those travel vlog videos will still be coming out in the next week or two, depending on how that goes. But as of right now, this is the progress I'm going to show you in how much I've been able to get my shop space organized, and in order to make this video not insanely long. So, if you enjoyed this video or want to see more shop rearranging, please drop a like, leave a comment, hit subscribe, ring that notification bell. If you want to support me in the channel further, please consider becoming an honorary striker on my Patreon. That link is in the description below the video. Or please consider becoming a member of my YouTube channel, which you can find down there as well. And as always, keep on rocking.